So we're doing book 4 teaching points. Let's just review. Oh, let's turn our phones off. I know I have done that. Let's review our thoughts on the lullabies. Talk to me about them, please.
They're really nice.
They're really nice.
It's a good time to really make sure you've thoroughly gone over tonalisation so that you can really just bring them back into that.
Good. And what are you listening for in that?
Ringing notes.
Good.
So,
And?
And in different positions.
Good. And Devin?
I'm not sure other than
That's fine. It's always fine not to be sure. Memory for the way you shift. Yeah, legato is what I was thinking about. It's quite easy to get through books 1 to 3 without really proper vibrato. Legato, also vibrato. But then if you're hearing tonalisation, it sounds like this. Then you have, which is just not really like going to enable you to develop those long phrases. So you want to make sure that they can sustain the sound.
And how would you teach them to do that?
Mostly just by listening to the sound. Can you find the sound that you want? But technically speaking, if they can't do it from just listening to what they're, because it's mostly lack of awareness. They don't mean to make it sound like that. They're just not thinking about it. So then, talking about more contact with the string, maybe doing some of this on the tip, making sure that they can do like this. Can you make the sound the same all the way through? You know, maybe close your eyes and see if you can. They can trick you as to when they're changing bow. They won't be able to, but you can pretend. It's good. Let's play the first lullaby. Has everyone had a look at the shifting that I suggested?
And that
From
was
the
that.
photography. Okay. It's on the chat.
Yeah.
The picture. Repeat. Yeah, and if you're going to play it so that it has a finish with the piano, you need to put in the Ds, and also if you're going to play it with the cellos, because it's a proper piece in their repertoire, you need to change the bowing. Well done. Okay. Continuity, Suzuki panel, whoever they were. Okay, we won't do the repeat, let's do the other one.
That's the one I have more problems with.
Okay,
Because
grab
there's
the
so many
music.
options.
Yes. Do you mean in terms of fingering or notes?
Fingering, because my brain goes, move.
I mean, I think it's fine. It's not like what I have picked to do is set in stone. I just think if you grab your books, the fingering that I have chosen to do just gives them a good opportunity to practice things that they've been introduced to before, and then we'll need to refine with the fingering that I do in book 4. If you play like we used to when I was a kid, book 4 you can literally get away with not a single expressive shift in the whole thing, just jumping up and down for the vivaldi, but that's not what I would recommend. So I'm playing second position all the way through until bar 11, and then I'm doing a little portamento up to the F for third position. So practicing portamento. And then the same, but it's from first position. 3 portamento shifts you can practice there. Let's play. Feel free to use the music.
Should I get a music stand? Because I also need to use music.
Yeah, why don't we get music
Yeah.
stands? There's probably one in there. Hannah, do you want to go and grab? Do you need one or not?
Happy to have one.
Okay, do you want to grab one
I'll
from
do it,
my
yeah.
room? Oh look, there are 2 in there. Follow Devon. Thank you.
Keep getting right.
We've got very important
Yeah.
tea drinking to do.
Is that recording?
It's on, yeah.
I can share with you, Joe.
Okay.
They can drink some tea while we're getting the stands.
You might want to stand that side then.
Yeah,
Hmm?
the recording
sorry,
is going.
In front of though.
You don't have a rivet gun, do you, Hannah?
A what?
That's a rivet gun.
I don't even know what it is. So
I
No.
don't know if that's the right
No,
name
I've
for
got
it. But like, basically these things aren't
Yeah.
screws, they're things that there's a machine that goes
Yeah.
and because
Great,
um,
no
I-
idea.
I was
No,
just
but
wondering
also-
if, because you live on a boat, I was thinking you might have lots of DIY.
I do actually.
Lovely tools,
Having
yeah,
that
sure you
handles
do.
grinder.
Yeah.
You also have to get the right size though.
Yeah, well I was thinking I might buy one because what happens to most of our stands is that one of those things goes and then they just end up getting put in the bin because they're completely useless.
Right.
If one of the sides is only a triangle,
Yeah.
especially if it's this one, so then this isn't actually attached to that.
Mm.
But it's such a waste of money.
Are we all here?
Yeah.
I don't mind. Should we do that? Should we do that? So we can all see Kate.
And the other challenge with this one is, oh, why don't you use my part if you don't have the fingerings in here?
Oh, okay.
Is the start, because it starts on the offbeat. So you really have to practice with the students. If you are able to play the piano, that's even better because you can just do it loads of times and you know what you're doing. But if not with the piano, because it goes,
Oh, right.
and they think, I can't sing it wrong, but they play with the beat as in where they first heard a note rather than the first bass note. That's quite a sophisticated thing to practice, listening for an introduction on the half beat. No shifting for ages. shifting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do recommend that that's what you do. Don't just play them in first or second or... I mean, it's fine in second, all of this, but actually you can't do all of it in second. But it's, you know, if the shifting that we talked about last week is in place, it's a great opportunity for them to get very mobile around the violin.
But you really do have to think about how wide your fingers need to be in each position. There's a change.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So let's play Seitz.
Back to that. The C natural on the A, the starting shape of your hand.
Yeah. What finger colour are we in?
Hot pink.
Yellow with a hot pink 3. Yeah. Well done. Yeah, indeed. Okie dokie. So my level 3s, step away from the music stand, please. Thank you. Level 2s, you're very welcome. Right, I'm just going to connect so that I can play the violin. He's allowed the music. He's on level 2. Look, why don't we make a circle? Devon, come back over here, please. Now, one of the reasons I want us to play with the backing track is that you will hear that there are some serious flaws in playing with it. Less so this one than the others. So when you're leading a group, rest position until now. Seitz 2 is even worse. I think it's kind of pretty much impossible to play with the piano part on these. Anyway, let's have a seat. And we're going to listen to the new, oh no, maybe it's only on Tilly's phone.
The new or the old?
Augustin
Ooh.
Hadlick is the new performer for the book 4 to 6 recordings, which is wonderful because he's amazing. But I think,
What's his surname again?
Hadelich, Hadelich. He is brilliant.
Is he in the US?
He is from Eastern Europe. I don't know where he lives.
Yeah.
I think it's really great to show. Maybe I will show it to you. No, I think we better not get distracted. He's done a really beautiful video of Dvorak's Humoresque, which is really lovely to show the kids because maybe we will watch it. Let's use these extremely expensive TVs that I thought we would use all the time during lockdown, and then we just didn't have anyone in the building, so couldn't. But he was in a tractor fire when he was very young, and so he's quite scarred. No internet access, go away. Which I think is a really great way to put into action, you know, the Suzuki philosophy of diversity and inclusion, by talking about how, you know, it's quite unusual to see a performer who is physically disfigured. Why is that? Is it really that we think that if you're not physically attractive, you can't play the violin very well? Or is it because there are, you know, many more forces at work that give people privilege for being beautiful and looking like, you know, the idealised version of a human. And then you can very easily extend that to a conversation about why, you know, so many performers in the West are white, because it's the same, obviously, systemic prejudice. It is so gorgeous. Oh, go away! Honestly.
Skips over.
I know, I'm trying to get there. It's because it's making me wait 11 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Isn't it just like... This will come out on video, but...
So this is book 3. Has he done anything else from book 3?
I don't know. I mean, it's a different key, obviously. And there's more... I don't think he did it because it's a Suzuki piece. I think he did it because it's a standard.
Ooh, he's not shifting his thumb there.
He is there, though. things that we talk about in this video. The contact point, the thumb. I mean, his thumb is a demonstration of how you can play amazingly without doing the right thing with your thumb. I'm not sure I'd point that out. When you bump into him.
Give me cliff notes.
I wish I could play words like that. Wow, good chords. I think it's a really interesting last note. I don't know why you didn't do portamento on it. Anyway, so that is fascinating on so many levels, isn't it? Because he plays amazingly, and yet, yes, we can say that he's definitely not doing some things in the most efficient way, which I think is really helpful to talk to your students about. Like, you can do what you like. You don't have to do the perfect bow hold. You don't have to have your thumb doing exactly the right thing. You don't have to, you know, like when you hear people say, I go on about this all the time, but when you hear people say, it's not going to work, it's very often not true. It just makes it much harder. So it's like, well, if you want to do extra practice so that you can play like that with your thumb not helping you as much as it might, great, go for it. But if you want the violin to be easy, then, you know,
This is the easy way.
yeah.
What happened for him? Was it a fire burn?
Yeah, a tractor fire, I think. Well, some sort of agricultural accident. And I mean, I don't know if you were surprised when you saw him from my description, because it's really not that bad. But it is really noticeable when you think about the people that we watch playing the violin or any solo instrument on screen. How often do you see someone who could be pretty much agreed on as not classically attractive? So infrequently. We don't see really fat people, some men, quite fat, but like not, you know. Does that mean you can't play the violin? No. Don't see people who look unattractive, because, you know, there are so many forces at work to make sure that those, you know, that music is not just about what you hear when you go to a concert hall or when you watch a video. It's also about what you look like, and you know, you can just have really interesting conversations with children, especially teenagers, I think, about those kind of things. Okay, so I'm glad we watched that, but we have also not talked about Seitz 1 at all. So, Seitz 1. Yes, so now we're going to do more listening, and we're going to listen to... Oh no, we're not, because I don't have it, that's why we did that instead. Anyway, the things that I notice when Tilly does her listening at home, in Seitz 1 particularly, the only thing I think is very different from the old recording is that bar 19 and 20 are off the string, very audibly so.
Oh.
You can very much hear that he's doing that there. Okay. Which I think is great, because the kids can do that by here. They like it, it's showy. It's not easy to make it sound horrible there, like it would be on E&A. Anyway, so what is book 4 all about, Joe?
Book 4 is all about concertos and learning how to perform it properly and
Excellent.
much more expressive.
Good. So what would be one of the things you want to check is all working well by ear, and perhaps think about putting in some extra repertoire while you catch it up if it's not? One of the things?
Shifting studies.
Yep, shifting. Great. Hannah, another thing?
How to perform with a piano.
Yeah, good. Playing with the piano. Also vibrato. Tone, obviously, tone and intonation, if they're not solid. I mean, I hope that they are solid by kind of mid-book 1 for your students. But, you know, if they're not solid by book 3, then you really have a problem. Like, you really don't want to listen to Dvorak with a sort of mezzo, forte, slightly scrapey tone. Even more so than you don't want to listen to, you know, waltz or something like that. And they need to have double stops and chords thought about in advance, because really to go from the Bach Gavotte in D major which is the first sustained double stop, isn't it? And then in the Bach Bourrée, to being able to play is really a very big jump. So I do recommend that you do some double stop stuff. You can make up your own exercises, you can do double stop versions of tonalisation, I would definitely recommend. The, you know, easy pieces with double stops, you can practice like Go Talent Roadie. Shall we just have a go at that? It's quite fun. Check this is the right, it's still working. Yes. So because the E is quite unforgiving, and because these double stops are mostly over the D and A, I would recommend that you play the fingers on the D string and add the A string. So we're going to play. Everyone just check their distance, please. So before you actually just launch into playing the piece, you want to practice finding the right part of the fingertip. And if they want a challenge, they can do the 4 as well. They don't need that for quite a long time, so if they don't want a challenge, they can just play open string when they get there. So let's do that. Carefully, please. You can all take the challenge. Good, and you are also making sure that they're leaving the fingers on, because if they play, then it's going to be much more messy than if they keep the fingers on as they go up and down, yeah? So then, ready, and. Good, so go to that Rosie with the A string added to the D string notes. Don't play this one back with open strings chords, which is quite fun because you can go from any combination of or single landing on another. Yeah.
And they really enjoyed it.
Yeah, oh cool, that's a great idea.
So
instead of just playing on open strings, so don't play this one back, you can do any combination of the different strings in it. Yeah.
So then you might play da 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 da, and they
Yeah.
do play that one back.
Or any rhythm as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, that's a great idea. Oh, well done. Brilliant. I shall definitely use that. Look, it's falling apart. So that go-to-line radio exercise would be good to do during your lullaby. If you're going to follow my kind of plan for book 4, I do lullaby number 1 as the first thing in book 4, unless they're desperate to play Seitz 1, in which case that's fine. And then I do it second. And we put the perpetual motions in during that same time, and the trill exercise is a little bit later. To be honest, most of my kids don't have a problem with trills. They don't really need these exercises once they're in book 4, because mostly they need them for book 3. So it doesn't really, I don't really use them that much, but anyway. So I tend to play this one first. And you can do the go-to-mat radio exercise there.
But before Seitz 1.
Yeah. There's also the Mary Cohen study book, Technique Takes Off, has this at the beginning of it. Sometimes during book 4, sometimes during book 3. It depends, you know, how they're going. It's quite a challenge, but
Mary Cohen.
Mary Cohen, yeah.
Technique Takes Off, book
Yeah.
3.
No, first Technique Takes Off. The other ones are called something else. I can't remember. I don't use the early ones very often. Sometimes, if you need someone who needs a few extra tunes,
What's that particular tune called?
Prelude. Very original. It's the first one in the book. I can go and get that book and you can have a look at it.
And did she write it? Or she
Yeah, yeah. And then don't ignore page 8 and 9, particularly 8 for Seitz 1.
Yeah.
Practice the upper and the lower lines separately of this first exercise on the page, and then put them together. And I think you do need to be, even though they have done that chord from Bach-Boré, because they're on both E and A, they need to practice that. And I am lifting there. Because what you hear all the time is, they know they need the D for the up bow, but they miss it. They miss that spread chord. So you have to practice landing on D and A very carefully and loudly.
So you're lifting before
I am lifting,
and
yeah,
landing at lapping?
ish, yeah. And then if you look at the next line down, you've got that same movement. It's the same over a string. And once again, they've printed at the bottom of the page the thing that helps with the first exercise on the page, which is first in the piece.
I also find it weird how they often put the end result first
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then they break it down. It's like,
yeah. And it's all in the wrong part of the book. Well, this isn't, but you know, like, I don't know. I'm sure that editors have a lot to do with it, who probably aren't musicians rather than the Suzuki teachers who are involved in it, but anyway.
Maybe for a parent you're looking for where that bar comes up and the numbers of them aren't enough for you to know. But actually looking at
But I mean, if you're a parent that doesn't understand how bar numbers
Yeah.
work, then you're not going to understand that this is that.
No. No.
Definitely.
No.
Anyway. And then page 9, you don't need to worry about at all for Seitz 1.
as in you don't do it.
Well, it's nothing to do with Seitz 1.
Okay.
E major scales, I hate this E major scale that then is just finishing on a B at the top and going back down again. My kids are practicing shifting obviously for a whole book already by now, well 2 books, and so I will teach them E major that goes all the way up into 4th position and goes to an E at the top because that is an actual E major scale. So what is written in the book is practice this. Which is helpful for the first position part, but I just think I want them to be doing lots of shifting. They've done quite a lot of scales by now, so that was horrible. I'd rather that they have a little gap to get up into 4th position, but then they're practicing that yellow with a hopping 3 and 4th position, and they're finishing the 2 octaves. And then for the arpeggio, we just put in a harmonic. So that's all in first, but we just put that note in. Back to Seitz 1, because that is preview for Seitz 2. So, concerto, the boxes that I put in at the top, tick boxes, are concerto style, vibrato, concerto style, vibrato, chords and double stops.
Where have you first done vibrato?
We've been learning it during book 3, so they should be now quite able to put it in, at least on the longer notes.
And lullaby.
Yeah, Lullaby should have it pretty much throughout, apart from doo-doo-doo, that bit. But yeah, they should be vibrating by now. And we have a vibrato certificate at the Hub, so if you're a student, when you feel like that is a vibrato, it's no longer an exercise, now you are doing vibrato, you can just ask Marcia for a vibrato certificate. Very happy to share it with you when you have a student who needs it. It'll be a little while yet. But you know, I do think to mark the big achievements of things like shifting, finishing a book, we've got certificates for the end of each book, which is separate from graduation, because when you finish the book, that is not when you're ready to graduate. You're ready to graduate like 6 months later. So finishing the book, we have a certificate. We have a certificate for finishing the sight reading books, because I really want them to notice that they are just as important and exciting. We have a vibrato certificate. We've got a certificate for practicing and listening 7 times in a week. And then there's a general, like, if someone's done something wonderful, or you know, if you have a child who's really naughty in group most weeks and then they are only slightly irritating, you give them a special certificate for improving their behaviour. So they're all at the desk. Well, you know.
I'm thinking of who's who could possibly get it.
So, concerto style, vibrato, chords and double stops. Let's just be clear. A double stop is a type of chord, but a chord is not a double stop, because a double stop only has 2 notes in it. That's why it's called a double stop. You're stopping the string across 2 strings. Yeah? So you're not wrong if you talk about chords in bar 19 and 20, for example, but most people would refer to the double stops as double stops rather than chords. Memory. Doubles, by which I mean the semiquavers section in 84. tone, obviously to do with the concerto style, intonation, obviously ditto, and flashy ending, and boxes. But of course, if you have a student who needs something extra, or you have a student for whom it's totally redundant to write vibrato because they do it beautifully and it's wonderful and they don't need the kind of extra, you know, appreciation of, I'm going to write vibrato and then I'm going to tick it because you're so wonderful at vibrato, and you can discount, you know, same for intonation and tone. It's not that you have to put all of these in, but these are the ones that you are likely to need most of for most students. Good. So, the very opening, I find the fact that it says piano, crescendo, grazioso quite strange. I would be interested to know whether that's what Seitz wrote or whether it's an addition thing, editorial. I haven't researched it to find out, but I do think, even if it is what he wrote, for our students at this point where we're making this big thing about this is your first concerto, to then teach them to play, it's like kind of a bit of a letdown and also quite difficult for them, much more difficult than playing it really in a showy way. So I pretty much am saying to my students, yeah, piano as in the very first part of that first note, but then we're going for it, and like by the time we get to the G or forte, grazioso just it gets ignored pretty much. Sorry. So let's grab violins because I think this is a really
Is there a word like concerto also?
like brillante, like it says at 80, or
Maestoso, maybe?
sorry,
Maestoso?
maestoso? No, I think maestoso means more heavy and grand. Like, I don't know, you can research it. So I'm talking with the students a lot about the idea of having a balloon under their arm that they're going to try and pop for that G. So we're really thinking about getting into the E string. It's like a fast up bow retake. You've got the slow bow and then this quick retake. You've got your elbow coming in. Let's just do open strings. Oh, totally screwed that up. Very good. Lovely. Can we go one at once? Oh, don't go too high. So you're just above the middle. Just above the bow.
Okay.
Because it's only 2 quavers, so even a bit closer to the middle. Yeah. That's better. Yeah, and then you want to make sure that you don't hit the frog. So yeah, good. Go again. Can you think more about your elbow coming towards your rib cage? Yeah. Do you hear the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Oh! Speed. Yeah. Good. Think about your elbow. Yeah, and then get the contact with the string so that you catch it with the fingers. That's better. Yeah. That was a really nice one. Good. Do you want to try with the fingers? Yeah.
Yeah, not G in tune though.
Yeah. Go again. Go again. Yeah, nice. And you can put, if you're going to use your vibrato, it's got to start almost while you're playing this, because otherwise, what I just saw was, and then it's a bit too late. Yeah. Oh my God, that was gorgeous. Yeah, and then a bit more speed, so that you have the sparkle. That's what I mean about I do not play it in a grazioso way. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so it all kind of ringing. Yeah, so it's really ringing. So open strings. Nice.
Ooh.
Can you get to the E a little bit earlier? Yeah, wow. I go again. Whoops. Yeah, really nice. And then with your fingers. Good. I think maybe a bit faster. Oh, amazing. Can you add vibrato or something? Yeah. 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 It's only a tiny little fizz, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you can't be doing That's really not going to work. Do you want to try with the fingers?
Sure.
Nice. Can you go a little bit faster? So think about dum bum ba 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 blah 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 blah. So yeah, nice. Good, well done. And so then this second bow, up bow, is almost like a retake, right? If we've done this, then for me, you way past hooking because we've come, you've made this big sort of show. So then there's like a tiny bit of a reverse retake. So if you look at the shape that my bow makes in slow motion, big, sort of up bow retake, and then just, so then it's like a figure of 8 almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just take your violins away.
Outside of figure 8.
Yeah, just take your violins away and just hold them, yeah. Just think about, so we're going up and then up, down. Up, down. Yeah. So you have that big sort of tick. Yeah, exactly. I did not do that right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let's try all of those notes. Good, so you have to come back because otherwise you're there. So faster. So if you've got the speed on your up bow, you have to use that to carry you to where you need to be because your arm has got to be not going a million miles an hour for this one, otherwise it's just going to crash, yeah? So it's almost like there's the break. But it's not really a break because it's just that's the end of the movement. But that movement is the full sort of 6 shape almost upside down. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's just try a few more times. We'll just keep going round and round like we were. Great. And so for my students, it's very much dependent on where they are with their playing, whether this is how we learn it the first time. Some of them do, or whether they come and play. And then later on in review, we do this work. So this is a really kind of, book 4, I think, the pigeons come home to roost. And so, you really see what's happening with your students. And I think that's completely fine. Like, we can't, we're not all going to have these superstars. Not every one of our students is going to be a superstar. And so to get to book 4 and not grind to a halt, you do need to make sure that you've got different options for not the quality of what they're doing, but the level that you're asking them to do it at. This is a very advanced way to play these few notes. And if it's going to take them 3 weeks to learn that, then that's not going to serve you, it's not going to serve them, the parents are not going to be happy, no one's going to be happy. And we have to remember that the most important thing is motivation, especially if you're talking about teenagers. This is where they really are like, well, I could just lie on my bed and watch TV on my phone. It's like if it becomes something that's another drag in their life, then they are going to lose the will to do violin. And so that's why the teenage, the social side, the groups, the activities, all of those are so important. But it's also, I think, even more important than when they're little to offer them a sense of momentum through book 4. Because if it's suddenly, I remember some of my students when I was a young teacher, taking a term to do one of the pages in Seitz, and then it was like, oh my god, it's taken a year for them to learn Seitz 1. This is not, it doesn't matter how much practice they're doing, it doesn't matter how much teaching, how I tried to be the best teacher for them. If you are in a situation where that's going to happen, you've got to do something different because they're just going to quit. Who's going to spend 3 years doing 3 pieces in one book? You've got to do different pieces, do different repertoire, teach differently, or and obviously all of those things come together, made me really realise, okay, I've got to teach book 2 and 3 differently, and approach book 4 differently, but it's, even if you do that for the students that is in front of you right there, it's not gonna help you, it's not gonna help them for you to be like, must teach book 3 differently. That's for your future, exactly, that's for your, current book 1s. So I think we do have to be really mindful with all our students, but particularly with the teenagers, of that. So pop the balloon with the elbow. A little fizz of vibrato if they've got it. Might be in review, might be first time through. And for me, I am probably lifting with most students the C as well, but it's much less and it is a hook. Not. Because it's the answer, yeah? So here's the question. And I would make that box, 10 times, up to the B in bar 12. Because the bowing in bar 11 is weird. It's not because it's hard, but it's nice to finish a phrase in a box and also
Where does the box
down,
start?
down, the first note.
Oh, the whole beginning bit.
Yeah, this. Once they can do the beginning as you want them to, but
So-
obviously
so
they would do the first sort of 4 notes as a separate box until they've got it. Definitely bar 19 and 20 is a box, and I would ask them to look at page 8 for the help there.
So it's not anything, please.
Bar 19 and 20 is a box 10 times, and they need to look at page 8 for the help when they're first doing it. You're hoping that by this time lots of your students are learning lots of the notes to their new pieces by themselves and coming to you saying, I can play the first section of Seitz 1, not, okay, let's start Seitz 1, let me show you, obviously you do need to show them some things like what to do with the bow in the first phrase and how to do the double stops, but I would hope that you're not sitting and teaching them how to play da 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 da. Da, 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 da. They should be able to pretty much work that out themselves using sight reading and oral skills at home. They do need this weird bowing explained, like in bar 17, because it's sort of really unclear if you're not used to that kind of printing of a slur. So they need it explained that the first 2 notes are a smooth slur and then the third note is a hook. And that, for me, it's very annoying that it's become, or is, how we write a hooked bow is the same as how we write a staccato second note within a smooth slur. So if you look at the second note of this piece, it's got a staccato dot on it.
Mm-hmm.
That is because you want it to be short. If you look at bar 17, the E has a staccato dot on it to separate it from the G. Why doesn't the G have a staccato dot on it? Because that would make it very clear that it's not joined to the E. Anyway, so they just need it to be clear to them. They need it explaining that this is a smooth slur and a hook, but the G is also actually staccato. Blah, 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 all fairly self-explanatory. Be careful with the rhythm at the beginning of the slower section and in bar 52. Talk about 6/8 time. So first piece they've done in 6/8 unless they've done it outside of the repertoire. I mean, that's one of the things that we're doing in Music Mind Games and Orchestra at this level. Like book 2s and 3s are learning that 6/8 exists because you can divide 6 quavers by 3, by 2, by 1 and by 6. Whereas, like 2/4 you can divide in 1 and 2, so you don't need, or 2 and 4, so you don't need 2 ways to subdivide it. But the 6/8 thing is because you want to be able to use 6 quavers in a bar, and it's either 1 and 2 and 3 and in 3/4, or it's 1 and 2 and in 6/8. I would definitely not ever try and explain that without a board that you can write things on or a piece of paper that you can write things on, so you can, you know, but we'll talk about that a different time. Yeah, bar 56 they need to count. Bar 64 they need to count. All of those, you know, like classic 6/8 bars. Does everyone know what tenuto means?
Yes.
Would you care to share?
Join together.
No.
No, like longer.
Long, yes. Tenuto. So it's written in bar 60, whatever it is, 6. And it, yeah, sort of held back long bow.
I describe it differently. I say it's like staccato but with a shorter stop.
Oh.
So you want to emphasise the detachment. but
Yeah,
making it
detached
longer.
bows.
That's an interesting way around it.
Yeah.
Because we first have it, maybe we have it before, in Judas, don't we? And the bow does the up, and we do slightly stop the bow, but
Yes.
almost not. So that's the first time I explain it, so I say it's like staccato but with a shorter stop.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that description. I'd never thought of reducing the stop rather than extending the length of the bow or the note, but it's the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Preview, make sure you're preparing for Seitz 3. Please write this along the top of the second page, because if they're not doing that already, and bearing in mind that you'll probably be putting in at least one lullaby, if not two if they haven't already done number 1, before Seitz 3, the Seitz 3 double stops are a huge hurdle, and unless you want to accept them playing them very badly, they need to start a long way in advance.
So which page is the preview that they're going to do?
We're going to talk about that another time, but just write in preview, make sure that you're preparing for Seitz 3 double stops. We'll talk about how to do it when we get to Seitz 3.
Preview 60.
It's lovely to have vibrato on the 4s. Obviously, depends how their vibrato is. Might be a review thing for a solo, might be first time round. We're just going to go through and talk about which practice boxes we put in on this page. So the practice boxes in the first page should really only be the beginning and then the double stops. You might need something of the rhythm in the slower section. They might need the D sharp, but you can tailor that to individual students. But I would say that almost everybody needs this, and then definitely everybody needs this, because that super high one is strange. I do use a 1 rather than a 2 and a low 3, but it's up to you. I don't think there's a particular, argument either way. And we do talk by now about all of the note names, and there are 2 note names on all of the, fingers or the notes on the piano or whatever. So they should be able to tell you that an E sharp is the same place as an F natural on the violin. So if they don't know what their notes are called by now, then that's a note for yourself to teach during book 3. Make sure that you are actually making sure that they understand the sharps and the flats and the naturals, where your natural semitones are, and that they can name every note. Most of my book 3 students spend some time in about the middle of book 3 where they have to play every note and give me both the note names for all of the ones that are not naturals. So they would play G natural, G sharp or A flat, A natural, A sharp or B flat, B natural or C flat. We do the natural semitones as the flats as well. C natural, C sharp or D flat, etc. all the way up the violin. And then for some of them, that's a huge challenge and they get a certificate when they finish. And for some of them, they do it in a week and it's fine. Lots of the kids play piano by this point, so if they do play the piano and if they're being taught traditionally, their theory will be a lot higher than if they're just doing Suzuki violin.
So which scale do you use?
We just do every single note, it's not a scale, just all the notes. But the notes that are...
So it's kind
The
of
notes that
chromatic.
would need you to call it a double flat or a double sharp to give it two names, we don't give two names. Like G natural, I don't say, or A double flat, but A sharp or G flat. Sorry, A flat or G sharp. I want them to be able to say both of those. So basically the black notes on the piano, they need two names, but then also the natural semitones need two names. So E, F, and then B and C need two names even though they're white notes. Does that make sense? I haven't found a good way to describe which notes I'm talking about there. And 72 and 73, put that in one box because then you can do it 5 times because it obviously is a double already. Everybody needs the last bar in that line, 75. For that A sharp.
So would you also do the first line and
Yeah, so we do the last bar of the first line and the second line 10 times each. And then the first 2 bars of the second line, 5 bots. And I do add MP for the first 2 lines and PP for the second 2 lines because just to do piano, 4 lines, 2 of which are the same as the next 2 lines is very boring. I realise I'm going to have to seriously reevaluate my timing on book 4 pieces for teaching points. So learn the doubles in singles first, obviously. In 2-bar phrases is helpful. And I think it's very useful to think about where the steps and skips are for them and jumps. So most kids can learn most kids find these doubles really difficult to memorise. And so learning them in 2-bar phrases there'll be one flash point in there that they need to remember, but they'll be able to do it. Whereas if they try and just learn the whole bit, it's completely overwhelming. I think it's helpful to write in a 5 for the extension on the 4. So it's like you kind of need to suddenly grow a 5th finger, it's so high. I do the same thing in the Bach Bray. And in terms of memory, the first memory trap is that, or the way that I explain the memory, is that after you do your first top C, first top C, stay on A. Second top C, go to top A. So, as we had demonstrated before, that is the place where most people mess up the memory, is going to bar 93 at 89. So they need to remember, after the first 5, stay on the A string, and after the second 5, go to the E string. Or go up, go down, stay down, go up. Do make sure they use a 4 in bar 90. So no why I see so many students playing every two. And I think this bar 94 and 95, risoluto would be a good word for the beginning in my opinion. Yeah. With resolve. It needs unpicking, doesn't it? Those 2 bars. So let's play.
It's nearly coffee time.
So we have, we're just going to play that and then stop there. Now, at the beginning I'm teaching it all as hooked from the string. So then we go back to the D and I'm practicing, okay, then you've got a hooked bow, so it's an up bow, and then go back to the D. So from here, hook, back to D. jazz because they've got more skills. But I'm not asking them to, you know, to do that first. That's really difficult. To catch the D after all those chords is really hard. So most of them will stay close to or on the string at first. And then obviously I'm hoping that, well, for my students, they have to still be in a group at this stage, but you know, that they would do that. They will definitely do all of these pieces as solos because there are only basically 6 pieces in book 4. 8 if you count the, or 9 if you count the, no, there are 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces in book 4, but nobody does the Bach double as a solo. So there are basically 6 opportunities for solos, and most kids are in book 4 for at least 2 years. I mean, that's quite quick to get through book 4. We're also doing other repertoire by this stage, so therefore you can pretty much guarantee they're going to play all of these pieces as a solo, and that's great because that is what will make sure your students in these books still do their review, is the pressure of performing to their peers. And some of them like it and some of them don't. But you know, I wouldn't let a book 4 student do Lullaby, you know, 3 times over a year. Even though it's nice to keep refining a piece, it's also like, no, you actually do have to go back and refine these pieces. Seitz 3 does fall into a slightly separate category for me, but we'll talk about that when we do those notes. So I am really clear. If you have a look on the photo, I hope that you can see it in enough detail, but that you have a hook between the first octave and then the second D, and then that it's a 2 and 2 chord, so hook, 2 and 2, so the next note starts on both strings and back to the D, which is not a hook this time, and that's 2 and 2 coming off.
What do you mean 2 and 2? Sorry.
2 and 2, as in 2 strings, the D and the A, and then the A and the E.
And that's
So-
the same with the previous bar?
Yeah. So a really useful way to teach your students about chords, and I would probably bring this up in Bach Bourrée the first time, is that if you think about, you've got 3 notes. Would you just turn the computer this way, please? Somebody, let's think about that one. That you've got 3 options, haven't you? You can spread it, da-da-dum. You can play 2 and 1. Oh, we've got more options. We can play 1 and 2, or you can play 2 and 2. So spread would be da-da-dum, 2 and 1 would be da-bum, 1 and 2 would be ba-bum, 2 and 2 would be dum-bum.
And some music says you can do 3. You can't do 3, can you?
You can do 3. I would not try and teach your students to do 3, but I think we could all do that F sharp, that chord. That's 3.
Oh, yeah.
You have to come away from the bridge because obviously the strings are softer, and thank you, Joe. You have to come away from the bridge because the strings are softer, like more bouncy, softer, and also you're further away from the different angles that are on the bridge. You have to sort of, I mean, it's basically like playing really loudly on the A string. I think I'm slightly changing my own, but you know, it's like yeah, I think in Seitz we might get some kids who are able to do those as 3. But obviously in review, definitely in review, and it depends on the instrument they're playing on, it depends on their, you know, skill level. I certainly wouldn't bother trying to change. Sorry? I don't care if they, you know, it's 2 and 2. Whereas book 5, Gavotte, I really want them to be sure, certainly by the time they're doing it in review, where they're on, exactly which strings they're on at which point. And, you know, that's a grace note. This is a chord. I'm upside down. But, you know, so I think there are certain places where you can be really picky about it, but yeah, this is not one of them really.
So would you allow them to choose which to do? You tell them what to do.
I would just say it's 2 and 2, and then if they end up doing that, that's fine because it's more showy. But what I really don't want is, I hate that sounds really pathetic.
Okay.
And so this box for those, I would go from 93 because they get confused by the approach to the double stops in terms of the semiquavers. So just stick it in and you know that that takes them into those notes. So the beginning of 93 to the pause is a 10 box. Then it's all like the beginning, then it's all fairly simple double stops. Sorry, semiquavers, and then the double stops at the end. Right, you want whole bows, pretty much 3/4 of a bow. That's something they really struggle with.
Including for the G's.
Yes. Partly the G has an accent and it's the beginning of the bar, so actually it sort of trumps the chord. No? Yeah, that's where that whole thing is going to. So when you hear, then, oh, it's kind of upside down, isn't it? It's a bit the wrong way around. So definitely we practice a lot of I tell them they've really got to work to play like this. It's got to be quite an active bit of playing. They have to really focus on slowing the bow and going nearer the bridge for the last note because it's really quick, big retakes, and then and then again we are doing 2 on 2 chords unless they're doing 3. So prepare the fingers, keep the 1 up, and vibrate on the 3 for the last note. I don't do the vibrato on the 3 for the first 2 Gs. There's too much going on.
Right, so vib on D3.
Yeah. Which is also a really fun way to talk to them about how that affects the open string.
Yeah, can you explain that?
The vibrato in the sympathetic note in reverse, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's sympathetic resonance. Just like if you have your finger on this note, this will ring if it's in the right place, but if you block the string, it can't. So it sounds different.
Yeah.
So the same thing happens if you make this note vibrate, it will affect the G string because, like you said, it's like the reverse of.
I think I need to look at some physics of it.
Okay. Because if it's a perfect octave, the string that is the perfect octave will resonate if you're playing 3. So what also happens, therefore, if you have the 3 down when you're playing the open string, you are enabling that note to ring. So you'll get, I think you would get more sound. If you look at my strings, if I play like this note, because I've put a stop to G when I'm not playing it, is vibrating. You can see it. Can you see that? So I think that would mean you get more sound than. So therefore, if you're getting that sympathetic resonance, then if you change it, it also will make the G wobble.
Yeah. I've got another physicsy question. Why do our fingers need to come close together when we're shifting up the violin? Or how would you explain that?
That is not something I know.
Might be something to do with the waves that you get for each sound as you go up.
Yeah, as you go higher, they get closer. The hertz get closer together.
I think so. Sometimes, like if you see the sound wave, you'll see the wave changes. I think it gets a smaller height peak the closer you get, which means the notes get closer. I think.
I don't know. I don't understand the physics of. I mean, basically, I don't really understand how.
It's magic.
I mean, it is magic. I do understand how the strings vibrate and how that causes sound, but things like things like sympathetic resonance, like how does that work? I'm not touching the string. How does it make the D string ring if I'm playing A3? I literally don't understand how that works.
Because
I mean, I
it's
know it
ring,
works. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But like, in terms of actually,
and it's like
what actually happens?
But if you compare it to light though, you would understand that you've got sunlight and then you've got reflected light. Like in here, if the sun creates a reflection on the wall, you'll go, oh, that's not another sun. That's just the light of the wall.
yeah.
So it's easy to think of it in terms of light than it is in terms of sound.
Yeah,
Because
that's
you've got
really
something visual
helpful.
to look at.
That's really helpful. So in terms of what I tell the students, I just say to them, the higher up you go, the closer the notes become. So you have to put your fingers close together. I've never been asked why, and I don't have the answer.
But you might
You can
have to
research it at
answer that.
lunchtime and then you can tell us after lunch.
You might have to answer that in terms of when you start doing harmonics and stuff and why they're clustered the way they are.
Yeah.
Because it's half and half and half and all the rest of that. So you might have to speak to them about that then.
If anybody watching this video understands what this is all about, please send me a message through YouTube. Thank you very much. Right, okay, so make sure that they're practicing those two chords without the interruption of the open string. Make sure that they're keeping the 1 on. I don't think they'll keep the 2 on for the 4. But you know, if they're trying to find the 1 as well as the 4 in the gap, then you're really making life hard for them. I think that's all about the last box.
That's a little bit. The very first position exercise, just after Rosette, would probably tie into that. With the 4 and the E.
Yes.
Move the 4 over. So if you've done that exercise, that might help.
I think that's absolutely true.
But
And I
I'm not
also
very-
think all of the pieces will help a lot more than that.
Yeah.
You know, if they need to do the exercises and they need to practice, you know, if you've got a solid 4 position, if you can play your 4s in tune, it's not such a huge leap to get from having the 1 on to adding a 4. If you don't, then it's going to be really yucky.
I suppose Lullabies are good one for that.
Yeah. Good, okay. Whew. Any questions about that marathon piece, which is just 2 pages long? Oh, the other thing I do want to say to you before I take questions is that I do pretty much for all my students, nearly, do this in 3 sections for credits. So they would get a credit for up to the 8-bar rest. Then it's flexible whether the next credit goes to the end of the page. If they need a boost and they're feeling like it's too hard for them, I would definitely do that. If they are not, or if they find the timing really, really tricky, like the second half of this page is not hard for most of the kids to play, but the timing can really put off some of them. So if it's taking them a long time, they would do a credit for the second half of that page. If they need a boost and they do it quickly, they would get a credit for the second half of that page. If they're sort of in the middle of those 2, the credit would probably go to bar 83, because then they've got a little bit of a challenge with the timing and quite a big challenge with the fingers on the top of the second page. And then from 84 to the end. Or they might do 4 credits and it might be up to 80, from the top 68 to 83 and then to the end of the page, or it might be up to the chords in 95 and then to the end, which is a little easy one. So, you know, it depends. Or some of them do two credits, the whole of the first page in one go and then the whole of the second page in one go, and some of them just fly through it. But it's really not the most common thing for them to fly through it. It's really most common for them to do at least 3 credits.
So it's not unusual for book 4 to take, you said, about 2 years?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And some of them take a lot longer than that. And I do, you know, Dr. Suzuki said that from book 4 is where he wanted people to start teaching pieces that were more appropriate to their own culture. Like, the reason I think that we don't find that any of this is inappropriate to our culture is this is the Western classical tradition. perpetual motion wasn't in book 4 when he wrote it or when he developed it.
Why did he say that?
Because he wanted people to play. I think, for example, he wanted Germans to play German. Well, these is German, Seitz is German.
But where did he say it? Sorry.
From book 4 onwards.
As in, where? Do you know where that quote came from him?
Oh no, I don't. I'm sorry. It's very difficult to track down so much information that you're given about Dr. Suzuki because so much of it is handed down orally by people who studied with him, and then of course that's really unreliable. With the best will in the world, people forget things. He was very keen on changing things, and so lots of people would say, "Oh, Dr. Suzuki definitely always started from the middle of the bow for twinkles." Or the upper half, and then it's like, yeah, but you were studying with him in 1972, and then by 1975 he was starting at the balance point. And he was definitely famous for saying, new idea, let's try this. So I think anything that people tell you about what Dr. Suzuki has said needs to be taken with a pinch of salt, because sometimes it's not true. And I don't know whether he actually said that or not, but I know that I've been told by more than one person that he said that. And I think it definitely fits with my idea of, by the time they get to book 4, I do book 4 religiously as it is, they don't miss pieces out, we don't do it in the right order, but from book 5 I definitely feel like a lot of my students do not want to just trawl through so much more Vivaldi, and then book 6 so much Handel, book 7 so much Handel, and often by then they want to do a grade, they want to do more flashy pieces, they want to do more romantic pieces, they're desperate to play Chardash, they're desperate to play meditation, we're doing pretty complex stuff in group. Some of my students who are not doing a lot of practice as teenagers are really focusing mostly on the pieces we're doing for group by now. And so I wouldn't be requesting them to keep all of their book 4 in review, for example, but we will say this half term we're studying size 3 and a new piece. And then, in the group we would then still play the other pieces. Like, what should we play now? Somebody choose a review piece, but they're allowed to use the book, they're allowed to sit out even if they've learnt it. It's much more flexible and relaxed than the little ones, because otherwise you're going to lose them, like we were talking about before. And that's, paramount is to keep them, isn't it? Keep them going. So yeah, and then the preview, we will talk about how to preview Sites 3 when we get to Sites 3, but that will be a kind of the box for this piece at the same time. All right?
I have a question.
Yes.
With the doubles, how do you play forte? Fast.
Oh, it's just on the string, so this is just attaching. It's not. I hate the fact that they've put staccato on it. It's so misleading.
Okay.
It's all just bow speed and depth.
Okay.
So doubles in book 1 then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And as a reminder, make sure you're doing loads of perpetual motion stuff, including the doubles. At the beginning of the piece, at the beginning of the book, they've got them in different positions, but they don't very often get to practice. That's, fatter than a caterpillar, and then the doubles in book 1, and then where do we get it? In book 2? Nowhere. In book 3? Nowhere. And suddenly in book 4 you need it again, so do keep it going. Good. Let's have a 10-minute break.
Fortissimo it comes to.
Yes.
So it's just really heavy.
It's only fortissimo by...
100
Oh, the end, yes. Yeah. That's really hard work. Yeah.
Does it affect the
Grafting.
arm movement?
No, it's just really fast and sticky.
Yeah. So it's to do with weight more than anything.
Weight and speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, weight and speed. I mean, obviously, if they're too far away from the bridge, it won't sound, but I wouldn't say come in towards the bridge for that, because otherwise it will just scratch.
Okay.
Good.